obviously, happy holidays to you guys. Hope you guys had a great day yesterday. We as a staff had a great opportunity to get in and kind of get ahead on some ECU. The players having off from school, they were able to kind of watch some of the film as well. So feel really good about where we are. Just recapping last week, players of the game. We announced them in the meeting on Monday, so that's why we're a little bit delayed. But players of the week on the offense, Chuck Montgomery and Cade Conley. Defensively, Owen Porter. And special teams-wise, J.D. Green McKnight. So hats off to those guys for doing a really good job. Obviously, everyone around them helped them achieve those accolades and stats, so that's a really good opportunity for them. Got a chance to watch the film from Albany. Learned a lot about our team, which was really good, which was kind of the plan going in. Learned some things about some of the new guys, and I think it's easy to say, hey, you got new guys, and I think, every coach in the country is probably going through this transfer portal-wise. Just what do you learn about the transfer portal guys? We got 30 of them, and a lot of them, for whatever reason, did not play a lot at the other school, so they don't really have a lot of game reps. And what we saw is their effort was good, their energy was good, but as the games went on and the snaps they had to take, their technique and fundamentals and eye discipline and those type of things start to kind of waver. So what does that allow us to do? That allows us to go back and really emphasize the importance of preparation. I know I always say that, how hard we prepare, and you got to practice well. But there's one thing about going out to practice and going through the periods and doing what coach tells you to do, and it's another thing of preparing for an opponent and applying those techniques, applying the film study, applying the leverage, applying the blocking, all of those things. And I think we were able to kind of point out some of those things. We made a cut-up of 4 or 5 practice plays from each guy, and then we put it with the game clips. And we said, hey, you're doing exactly what you're doing in practice, but you kind of get the, oh, well, it's practice, or I'll get it right in the game. And trying to emphasize to those guys our process of preparation. All of them were very receptive. A lot of them kind of were like, wow, I never heard that before. You got to remember with this transfer portal now, a lot of times kids come in, they're 4 stars, 5 stars, and because there's so many 4 and 5 stars in the room, if you don't pick it up right away, they move on to the next guy. They get you caught up in the spring. And some of these kids decided, hey, I'm going to move on. And they really never got a chance to get, quote, unquote, coached or developed. So I think it was really good. I think the team was really receptive to the way we approached things. A lot of positive from the game, a lot of negative, or things we got to get cleaned up. We try not to waste an opportunity, whether it's success or failure. And I think when you go back and you look, there's a lot of times in that game where we're doing some things that we did not do consistently last year. And then there are some times where some of the guys that probably erased some of the mistakes that aren't here anymore kind of showed up. So learned a lot from that. Preparing to go into this next game against ECU, very formidable opponent. Coach Houston has done a phenomenal job since he's been there. They play really hard, tough, physical football team with a lot of talent offensively. Last year, they were one of the top offenses in the country. This year, they returned some of those pieces. The quarterback is doing a really good job for them, Mason Garcia. They're playing 2 guys right now, so they're both having some success. We're preparing for both of them. Very similar in styles, different from last year, or different from last week's guy. They're a little bit more stand in the pocket, strong arm, athletic, more of the Tebow body, if that would make sense, more of the 6'4", 6'5", 240-pound guy with a really strong arm that can run, not necessarily a scrambler or a guy that's going to pull it and go 60, but a guy that can pull it down, step up in the pocket, and get 6 and lean into a guy for a first down. So we're preparing for both. The backup, Alex Flynn, a little bit shorter, but still a bigger, stockier guy with a really strong arm. The one thing you see from this unit offensively is their offensive system is in place. The system they run is really consistent. Even when you look at last year to this year, their play design and what they're trying to do, areas they're trying to attack the field, is really consistent. So they do a really good job there. And then defensively, multiple group. They're going to pressure, stunt, move often. They try to create a lot of confusion up front, try to create a lot of edges. Their guys are aggressive. They're fast. We just got information back from the conference that they're player who got ejected, number 5, last week. They reviewed it, and it was not targeting, so that's good for him. Not that, you want anybody to be out, but you definitely don't want someone to be penalized for something that wasn't as clear or as I guess you would say, distinguishable on the field. So glad that they were able to get that cleaned up. But they're a really good group on both sides of the ball. You can tell that Coach Houston's culture is a tough, hard-nosed group. We're expecting a very challenging environment. Going down there to their home opener, that crowd, their fan base supports that team pretty good, and they've had a lot of success. So really looking forward to it, ready to hit the field and get ready for this week.
How different are you guys from when you met 2 years ago?
We're 180 different. We went back and just looked at that film, and we probably couldn't name 4 of the same plays that we're running now. I think if you remember, Tim Cramsey was, the offensive coordinator then. We had Grant, we had Willie, we had Gaines. We were a different group. We were more that first year we were here. I was more trying to keep the same system in place so we could kind of hit the ground running rather than starting over. And then as the years that went on, we've kind of morphed a little bit from that. So we're not very similar at all. We kind of went back to look at it to see if they were similar. Somewhat, they've changed a little bit on offense, and they've changed a little bit on defense. They've added 1 or 2 coverages, but similar. Their coordinators have been in place, the duration. Ours have kind of changed over, so we're kind of evolving, if that makes sense. But for us, it's other than the fact that we wore green jerseys and black pants, we're probably night and day different scheme-wise than what we're doing.
Coach, they did a pretty good job on Blake Corum and that defensive line. Michigan had a kind of a hard time running the ball. Did that stand out to you on film?
Yeah, what they do defensively really challenges offensive lines because there's a lot of single blocks, because of their pressure, their slants, their angles. They force you to kind of block guys singly. Obviously you'd love to get combos and double teams and work up to the backer. But because of the way they angle, slant, stunt, they play different multiple fronts. A lot of times it's a guard on a 3-tech by itself because the backer has moved and now the center's got to pull off. So we've been working with that. Our O-line is going to have to do a really good job. Obviously Trent Holler knows a lot about these guys. I asked Trent the other day, I was like, you remember anything? He was like, Coach, to be honest, no. I was like, well, what help are you? But again, kids, he's been here 2 years now, so the transition's different. But they do create a lot of issues up front, and that's one of the things that probably is a little bit different from 2 years ago. They weren't as aggressive up front as far as kind of pulling guys off blocks and making you kind of singularly block guys up front, if that makes sense.
Knowing the history between these two, will you delve into that a little bit with your guys? Obviously, they've got a tribute down there, and they were supposed to play in 2020. But there's a kind of a friendly rivalry between these two. Do you get that from these?
Yeah, we did a little bit of a preview of it that last week of camp when we went out to the cemetery, and we kind of gave a little prelude when we named Coach Red honorary captain. We kind of explained the situation about this week. For us, we're going to try to keep the focus on we got to go down and execute really well. No disrespect to the events and the people involved in that. I think they're going to honor Coach Red at halftime. Him and his wife are going to be there. But I wanted to make sure we handled that separately from game week because I wanted those guys to accept that, hear that. They gave Coach Red a round of applause, and he spoke to the team for a little bit. But this week I wanted to be about execution. We got a lot to get cleaned up. And now we know who we are. We got to go really reestablish our identity, because the first show or the first game was kind of, okay, I don't know what our identity is going to be. Some of it was who we are. Some of it was who we're not because we got some new guys and some guys are put in different, different scenarios. I think, again, one of the unwritten deals there was I wasn't sure how Coach Seymour and the defense was going to play, in a game situation. It's totally different, even though Coach Seymour has done a really good job installing and they've done a good job through camp, calling plays on game day is different than, scripting for practice. I thought they did a really good job, though. I thought they handled it well. I thought they handled the substitutions well. I thought they handled the way he calls the game well. But that was new, so we weren't sure, You know, is that going to take a quarter to figure out? You know, obviously there were some things we got to get cleaned up, you know, schematically, but I thought they handled it well. You know, we had been in the past, we'd had a little bit of a comfort zone with Coach Guidry and how he called the game and when he knew, you know, what players were going to kind of get going at what times. And I thought, you know, for the most part, Coach Seymour and the staff did a really good job of kind of keeping that consistent, if that makes sense.
Coach, you mentioned
Did you get your parking passes and tickets and everything? Are you good? We haven't found those yet?
touchy subject.
Okay,
Touchy
all right.
subject.
Well, we'll counsel and reprint them.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
All right. You mentioned looking at the film that, you know, from Saturday and seeing the new guys coming in, how they performed. But you guys were shut out in that first half. You came out and scored 21 points in the second. So just what did you see? What was the biggest change that you saw when you looked back?
Yeah, I mean, we did some things to give the guys a chance to show us what they could do, right? I mean, if you can't run base offense, it doesn't matter what game plan we come up with. If you can't block the guy in front of you, not hold, keep your hands inside, call the right combination. If we can't run base offense, I mean, we could draw 100 plays up in the sand, but if we can't do the basic stuff right, we're going to struggle. And that's what we were trying to figure out. We had some guys who had been here a while. I think, you know, Brian Robinson on the first play. He was one of the guys. He's been here a while. He's had a phenomenal camp. Okay, well, in practice, if I yell holding, the offense boos me. If I don't yell holding, the defense boos me. So we get it. I mean, we get in a game, and he was one of the guys we went back and looked at. I mean, he's a guy that's a physical blocker. Well, because sometimes he is a physical blocker, he's got to kind of know, okay, I got to get my hands inside, when to let the guy go, when not to let the guy go. Well, in practice, if I say you're holding, everybody boos. Well, it shows up in the game. So, again, instead of trying to figure out, okay, can we call this certain play and throw the ball 100 yards down the field, yeah, we can do all that. But if we can't play base football, none of that matters, because what's going to happen? We're going to call this perfect play, and we're going to go around the mulberry bush and throw an 80-yard touchdown. Somebody's going to be holding. That's base football. You know, we're going to, you know, line up. Somebody's going to jump offside. That's base football. So, again, when you got a brand-new team, which we're a game in, and that's why I said Albany knew what they had. So Albany could put a legit game plan together to say, hey, so one of the examples, Albany was a big third down empty team. Like, that was something that we walked into the game saying, hey, if they get to third down, they got a really good quarterback. They want to spread everybody out and kind of, you know, put some people in space. They didn't run empty once. So Coach Seymour asked the, you know, coaches there, well, what happened to empty? We didn't think he would block you. So, again, you can have a great game plan, but if you can't do the base stuff, they didn't think they could block us, so they didn't go empty. So, again, we can have a great game plan, but if we can't do the basic stuff, we're setting ourselves up for failure down the road, is what we were trying to prevent. So we think we've got a really good idea of who we are. That has nothing to do with the production. The plays should work. You can call quarterback sneak 10 times in a row, and if everybody executes their job, you're going to move the ball down the field. So sometimes the play calls get a little bit over-exaggerated, but if you play base football and you can get 11 guys on both sides of the ball executing their job, the play's going to work. And that's what we were trying to find out. Obviously, as we got into it, we found out more about what our guys were comfortable with, what Albany was trying to do based on what they've seen from us. So we were able to come out in the second half and have a little bit more consistency. But in the first half, we were just trying to figure out who can play base football. Like, let's not fool ourselves. Now, we could have went out and found a way to, you know, put up 60 points. And then we'd go down here to Greenville, and we get our face smacked in because you still got to block that guy. You got to tackle that guy. The long run that broke out for 70-some-odd yards that the Albany quarterback had, 2 guys were supposed to have their eyes on the quarterback. Both of them are playing the dot. That's base football. And that's not a knock on those 2 guys. That's, again, they get in the game, they get excited, they want to go make a play. And so that's what we were trying to figure out. Who can play base football? We should have had 2 guys on him. He might not even have survived the night. Should have had 2 guys on him, and the other 8 guys would have had to dive. Both of those guys tried to go tackle the dive. Well, that's what's going to happen. I would have rather that happen and learn from Albany with us coming out with a close victory, and then rather than go down here to Greenville and then you guys are like, well, what happened? You beat Albany 66 to – yeah, but we didn't know who we were. So, but again, don't get me wrong. We should have been able to have a little bit more consistency, but the things we found out really have helped us understand who we are, who can do what. Some guys only have a certain play rep count right now, and they can't get Once they get past a certain amount of plays, their minds start to spin too fast. So all of those things. Obviously, I get it from the fan perspective. They showed up, and that was phenomenal. Probably the biggest crowd since I've been here. Really good job. I know that they want to see the scoreboard lit up. Awesome. I agree. But I want to see wins. That's my expectation is to win. Their expectation is to show up, and they did. And we won. So it's a great Marshall day. Now, did we win in flying color fashion? Half the teams in the country would trade places with us right now. Trust me. Ask the team that played last night. They would love to trade places with the 1-0 barely victory herd. So, but don't get me wrong. I'm not overshadowing the fact that we got a lot of work to do. We do have a lot of work to do. We got a lot to improve on. But I'm not going to make our guys feel like we lost the game because we didn't play up to the standards of Vegas or Thundercast predictions or whatever else that may be. So.
Coach, always nice to see guys step up. Cade, you mentioned him earlier. Just what kind of jumped out at you with him in camp and kind of made him a big-time contributor?
I think that's a perfect example. Cade was a guy in camp who was just good, not like head over heels. Like we didn't walk in saying, "Hey, we got to get the ball to Cade." We thought he did some really consistent things in camp. We thought as camp went on, he kind of got better and better. And I mean, he had a phenomenal night under the lights. You know, that's the one thing that I can't reproduce under the lights. And sometimes when those lights come on, it does strange things to people, positive and the other way. But Cade is a great example of that. We wouldn't have went into the game. We didn't go into the game saying we're going to throw the ball to Cade 7 times. We didn't go into the game saying we weren't. But as the game went on, you know, based on the defense they were playing, based on the plays we were calling, he took advantage of his opportunities. And I think he'll be able to build on that moving forward.
When you talked about you don't know what they're going to do come game time, so you're kind of enlightened a little bit after you look at film, right? Does that help you on game week?
Yeah,
too, right?
yeah. I told the coaches, believe the film. I mean, some guys do everything right in practice because they know the person they're going against. They know basically the formation, and there's no result-oriented consequence. Like, so, you know, if a DB gets burned in practice, it's like, you know, you got me. We'll talk about it in the locker room. But the scoreboard doesn't light up. Everybody's not pointing the finger at him. But in the game, if a DB gets burnt, I mean, he's got some accountability. And I think, again, I don't think any of our guys are apprehensive or scared or not wanting to make a mistake. But when you put a consequence to your action, obviously that changes how you approach it. So what we try to do is in practice to get them to practice with that same mentality. Our practices are set up that way. You know, we try. Our older guys understand it because they've been here longer. Some of the new or younger guys are learning now why Coach is probably more of a maniac in practice than he is on the game days, because practice is where you build the confidence in yourself. Practice is where you build the confidence in your coaches. Practice is where you build the confidence in the people around you, so that on game day, people already know what to expect from you.
Any more questions?
Good? All right. Well, I appreciate you guys. Look forward to seeing everybody down at ECU, and have a great week. Go Herd.